We are Tend Collective, and we are creating caring communities and workplaces. Here's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about why we were founded and the problems that we were seeing in the industries we work in. We're going to introduce ourselves after we share all the problems, and I think you'll agree with many of the problems that we're identifying. So please let us know in the chat if something is resonating for you. Bri's going to lead a mindfulness exercise, and then we'll go over the services that we currently offer. So to start us off, we all have been working in mission-based care for our entire careers, as have many of you here. And we just kept seeing the same problems over and over. It didn't matter like where we worked or when we moved. We just kept seeing these. Our employers were asking us to care about the populations that we serve while not sharing that same care for their own employees. Our employers were asking us to promote values of transparency and trust. This is a core component of trauma-informed care, while not sharing vital organizational financial health information with us, and not trusting their own employees to have authority and autonomy in their roles. They were asking us to create a new trauma-informed paradigm for those organizations that were in the trauma-informed sector while keeping us in oppressive employer-employee systems with way too few days off to have good health and morale and mental health. There was always a sense of false urgency and pretty limited work-life boundaries at a lot of places. They were asking us to be resilient and build resilience while we worked in silos without a sense of community and not changing the policies and practices that cause the need to be resilient in the first place. And so what I always like to say is we want to create communities and workplaces that we don't have to recover from. There's no need to end your workday feeling like you, if you don't meditate or go to yoga, you're gonna die. That's not good. So we want to create, well-rounded environments where we're excited to go to work. I think we all know what that feeling of dread is like when we just are like, I just don't think I can sign on today or go in today. It doesn't have to be like that. So we believe that trauma-informed care has to come from the inside out. And so we came together to see if we could address some of these problems to help mission-based organizations practice what they preach. So if you're saying we're going to implement trauma-informed care in our hospital or in our social services department or our public health department, are you treating your employees with that same care? And so we identified some barriers to caring work environments, and we're going to use the social ecological model lens, which is a pillar in public health, which is that contrary to popular American ideology, it's not just all on the individual, that we're embedded within relationships that are embedded within communities and institutions, which are embedded in policies and social norms and cultural norms. So on the large scale societal level, there's a lot of different cultural things happening, which is that in care-based work, this tends to be work that is feminized or devalued, lower paying work, lower status work, things like teaching, nursing, caretaking, anything. I'm like public health. I'm thinking of when I did my MPH program. It was like 99% women in my program. Yeah, okay, I'm seeing some nods. And so then, okay, same for your counseling program. Yeah. And so then, these professions where we care about each other, taking care of each other, making sure that we're in good health, making sure that our mental health is good and our physical health, these industries are devalued. At an institutional level, there's so many barriers to care. And it intersects with what we're dealing with at a national level. So for me, after I graduated from college, I actually just was so curious to understand what evil socialism, that the media, that conservative media tells us about. Like, I was like, what is that? Like, how, I was like 24 years old, so not very worldly. So I picked one of these evil socialist countries, the Netherlands, and I moved there after college. And I remember having an illness, and I was just going to tough it out like a good American. And my partner at the time was like, why don't you go to the doctor? And I was like, what do you mean? Just go to the doctor. And you can just go to the doctor in other places and they make it really easy. And I just went in. I just saw a doctor. They have many of them. They're in your neighborhood. They're not in kind of formidable hospital settings. And I was in and out with the medication that I needed in about half an hour, the whole thing. So that was an awakening for me that the way that we do things in the United States, we just put up a lot of barriers to care. Healthcare is hard to access. Again, like in the Netherlands, it's like illegal to work in the month of August. You have to close your business. We don't do that here. And if we did, we might not be seeing some of the health outcomes that we're seeing, which is the shorter life expectancy, the declining maternal health outcomes, and all of the different health outcomes where we're consistently ranking last out of the countries in the developed world. From a relationship and interpersonal lens, I think we all can come up with lots of examples. And if you have any that you want to put in the chat, we would love to hear them. But, a lot of people get promoted into positions because they're really good at doing that job, but not trained how to manage people. And what I've noticed as a manager coach, which I've been doing for many years, is that oftentimes people kind of think that it's like this intuitive thing, like because I have vocal cords and can speak, then I probably know how to communicate without really seeing it as a skill set to learn and practice and develop and get better at. So these are some barriers to not being able to care about each other in the workplace. And I think also, due to a lot of the social and cultural constructs that we may not view caring obviously as something that we value or something that we could practice and get better at. At the individual level, really high caseloads. We're also, taught from a young age that the more we do, the more valuable we are. So any other limiting beliefs that we learn that maybe makes it so that we're not able to care about ourselves that you want to put in the chat? I think lack of boundaries is another one. So not being able to say, no, I'm not going to answer my phone after 5 or 6 p.m. Or so just reading from the chat, girls are taught to care for others before themselves. Other people's concerns are more important than mine. Their time is more valuable than mine, and fear and guilt. Yeah, thank you. So we are envisioning at 10 Collective this alternate reality where what could it look and feel like when we care about each other, both within our communities and the people that we serve, and the people that we encounter every day, people in our household, people we see at work, our neighbors, what could that feel like? And so I think cultural anxiety has never been higher that I've seen in my lifetime. And there's just so many stressors. And whereas probably life actually has always had a lot of stressors due to our, new age of information, the internet superhighway, we know about every terrible thing that's happening immediately. And it often gets amplified, the intensity of it, due to, social media platforms. And there's also like great things about that too, but I think maybe it's been tough for us to adapt to how much information and the intensity of feelings that we're presented with, in addition to some very real social problems that are happening. And, we talked about this at Tend, which is that having a bubble of care, whether it's your household or your church or a community organization that you work or volunteer with, or honestly, your workplace where we spend 40 hours a week, having this be a place that cares about you and that feels safe is just going to make the biggest difference in your life and your ability to, use that buzzword of being resilient, the ability to kind of snap back when something stressful happens. You're going to be able to do that when you have people who care about you in your communities. So I'm going to invite you all to think about a time that you felt safe and cared for by your work environment. It might take a moment, but think of a time. I've had a lot of good work environments, actually. So take a moment to breathe and feel into that memory. And we want to create a world where we feel that way more often. And think about a time you felt connected to your community. For me, there was this time before the pandemic started when my church in Boston, there was a really big church coalition and they all teamed up, every denomination, and 600 people gathered to talk to Massachusetts politicians about the healthcare reform that we wanted. And you just looked around and it was every denomination of church, in every direction, all coming together for better healthcare policy. I feel like we haven't gotten back into big group gatherings since the pandemic, and I really miss those. And so we want to create a world where we're feeling connected or coming back together again. I think a lot of us are feeling a little out of practice. That's what I've been hearing. Now we're going to introduce ourselves. So my name is Allison, and I have a master's in public health from BU. And I formerly was at PACES Connection and the Center on Child Wellbeing and Trauma at the University of Massachusetts, doing trauma science education programs, policies. And one of my favorite things at PACES Connection was managing our community of over 50,000 people and creating a lot of the educational and community engagement programming. And I'm really excited to utilize, everything that I've learned. I'm really passionate about putting research into practice. And you really translating that, and how can we use the best of what we're learning and getting to know about health and well-being and mental health? How can we translate that into programs and policies that care about people? And I'm really excited to, do soft skills and interpersonal trainings and teach emotionally attuned management skills. And I'm also the host of a mental health podcast. A few of you here today have been on the podcast, Carrie, Kyle. And so it's on any major podcast platform. It's about mental health, and it's really a lighthearted approach to serious trauma topics. And 3 things that I really like are pizza. I think I could eat pizza every day and never get tired. Fluffy cats and dogs, and redwood groves.
Hi, thanks, Allison, for getting us started, and welcome everyone. It's so great to have all of you here today and to feel all of your support as we are launching. My name is Bri Twombly. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a consultant at the 10 Collective. My background is in mental health, specifically infant mental health. So I primarily worked with kids 0 to 6 and their families, and really focused on the relationship as that kind of change agent. While I've been doing that work, I did a lot of different trainings and certifications within trauma, and became very passionate about trauma-informed services and organizations and systems, and really started to say there's kind of that individual level that we're doing within therapy, but there's so many of those systems, like Allison was talking about earlier, where we're requiring people to be resilient because of our systems. and our systems are creating oppression. And how do we change those systems so we have a world that is promoting healing instead of kind of hurt and harm? So really excited to be a part of this group. And some things about me is I love snuggles with my son. He will be 3.5 tomorrow. I love clearing my
Tomorrow.
mind skiing and chocolate just in time for Valentine's Day. Chocolate is a big passion of mine. Let's put it that way.
Thanks, Bri. Chocolate's a passion of mine too.
And I guess I'm up. Hi everyone. I'm Donielle Prince, and I'm a mental health educator and counselor. And in the past, I've worked with children, and currently I work with adults also. And I met Alison when we worked together at Paces Connection. And I've always known how important this issue of caring community in the workplace, I think in general, but also especially in the workplace, is to Alison. And she brought that forward at Paces Connection. Um, Even when spending a lot of our meeting times, if she was leading a meeting, really making sure we connected to each other. So it really is part of who she is. It's a true deep passion for her. And so I'm so glad she's bringing that vision to the world, to the workplaces of the world. And so I'm, of course, happy to support this work as an advisor to Tend. And I'm also going to pop up to share content, throughout the year, largely around sociocultural aspects of creating caring community. One way to think about it, the words are always shifting, but when we talk about DEI, the B was added, and that's the belonging piece. And, a lot of that has to do with people being able to bring their whole self to work, and how does culture impact that? So I'm happy to, I'll look forward to being around, and I'm probably going to become a Tend addict. And every everything that is all at every public offering, is as long as I can make it in my schedule. So I know this is very needed work, and so I'm glad that Alison and Bri are leading the charge to bring it into the world, and I hope to see many of you and many others throughout the year.
My turn. Hi, everyone. So my name is Marianne, and I'm also an advisor to Tend. So throughout my career, I observed a common issue that I'm sure everyone has experienced and or observed themselves, which are these outdated practices in people operations, particularly in administering trauma-informed approaches that promote employee well-being. Many places struggle to adapt to the diverse needs of their workforce. There's so many generations in the workforce, and they're just not keeping up. And so my assessments and actionable recommendations aim to bridge that. So in nearly every role I've held so far, I've taken on the responsibility of improving employee engagement, updating policies, and fostering healthy communication among departments and teams. I hold a bachelor's degree in psychology from Johns Hopkins University and dual master's degrees from the University of Pennsylvania. And I'm committed to creating healthier and more empathic workplaces, and so incredibly grateful to Alison for launching this important and meaningful collective.
Thanks, Marianne. And one of your master's degrees is in criminology, and I'm like so
Yes, it
curious
is.
to learn more about that, because that's such an interesting one. And we were actually just talking at a Tend meeting about how many of us have worked in mental health spaces where the focus was criminal justice, and we kind of had this moment of realization that in the United States, that's where all the funding is, because of the prison industrial complex that we have, and it's kind of depressing. So that tends to be where a lot of us in this room, find ourselves in these spaces. And actually, when we're thinking about various cultural threads, I think, punitive systems where we perpetually are wanting to make people feel ashamed and punished, from school, all the way up to work, and how we engage in our communities is a really common thread. So thank you all, Donielle, Bri, and Marianne, for sharing, and I'm so delighted to be working with you all. And Yeah, thank you. So now Bri is going to guide us through a little exercise.
So, leading mindfulness exercises is something that we really want to make sure we're incorporating into our offerings through Tend. And I'll talk a little bit about some of those reasons before I kind of get us started with our activity. But I'm going to invite you to participate in a body check in. So often, as we're kind of moving throughout our day to day, it can become really easy for us to disconnect from our bodies, right? We're going from task to task or from family to family, and we aren't necessarily checking in with what we need. So I want to take some time to invite you to participate in checking in with your body. We're going to do a short mindfulness exercise that you can really do at any point during your day. And there are three main things that this exercise is able to help us do. So the first is that it helps us to slow down and connect to our present moment that we're in. The second is that it can help to stop or put the brake on our activation of our stress response system. So we can come out of that survival mode, that fight, flight, freeze, fawn kind of response that we may be in. And then the third is to acknowledge without judgment, as best as we can, any kind of feelings. And when I'm talking about feelings, I mean emotional feelings as well as any physical feelings within our bodies that we may be having in that time. So I want to invite you to participate in the way that feels safe for you. That may mean that you turn off your camera as we're going through this. That's totally fine. Also, if you'd rather just take deep breaths instead of doing the activity, stretch, shake out your body, you're welcome to do that if that is kind of what your body is telling you that you may need in this moment. But if you'd like to participate in the activity, I invite you to start off by closing your eyes. Now take a moment to notice any physical sensations, such as your feet meeting the ground. Notice if your heart is beating fast or slow. Notice if your jaw is clenched or relaxed. And notice any areas of relaxation and any areas of tenseness throughout your body. When you're ready, we're going to inhale for 4 seconds. We're going to hold for 4. Now we're going to exhale for 4. We're going to do that again. Inhale for 4. Hold. And exhale. And one more time. Inhale for 4. Hold for 4. And exhale for 4. And when you're ready, I invite you to open your eyes and return back to the group. And we hope that activity helped to kind of center you to the space and the time that you're in right now, the place that you're in. If you need to kind of, I can see Alison shaking her body a little bit. If you need to kind of shake it out a little bit, you're welcome to do that again, get up and move. And then we just invite you, if you kind of want in the chat, to share what that experience was like for you, or how you're feeling kind of now that we are done with that activity. And thank you for participating at any level that you chose to.
Thank you so much, Bri. I was just about to say what Donielle put in the chat, which she said was holding on a lot of tension. I was holding so much in my core. I was excited but nervous to present today, and there was a lot going into this launch. So I'm like, oh, wow, that's all sitting right there. If anyone else noticed any particular place that you were holding tension, go ahead and put it in the chat. We'd love to know. Thank you so much, Bri. Um, and I want to add, if we end up working with any of your organizations in the future, that those are, interactive activities will be part of what we offer. Your jaw, yeah, totally. So great, we're right on schedule. So let's go over what we offer. And for some of you, it may be that you just start to think about what it could be like to work with us, or you refer us the next time you're at a dinner party and someone says, I sure wish we had help with X, Y, and Z. And you say, I know about this great group called 10 Collective that can help. And so thank you so much in advance for keeping us in mind and mentioning us to people. We truly, like, our mission is to help people care about each other. So any place that we can facilitate that work, we would love to talk about partnering with you. So we're grounded in that inside out work that we were talking about earlier. So we have a lot of very traditional public health or social work offerings, like program creation, implementation and evaluation, grant writing, community management, educational content creation, and community assessments. But we also, are really grounded in you got to do the work first inside, and that's really going to serve better the people that you serve. It's really hard to show up as a nurse or a social worker if you feel burned out and exhausted and stressed and devalued. So we are offering organizational assessments, one-on-one manager coaching, leadership development, training series in trauma-informed care, psychological safety, communication, conflict resolution, DEI. And I really like that the B has been added, belonging, and related topics. And so we can help with reducing employee burnout, reducing turnover, increasing productivity, increasing morale, trauma science education, which is really just brain science education. The technology has really accelerated what we understand about stress in the body. And so when we talk about trauma science and trauma-informed care, what we're saying is, hey, we have been doing some better scans on the brain, and we better understand what's going on in there. And we're going to explain it to you. And once you understand how your brain works, you will probably want to do things a lot differently. And building those different programs and policies. And we can put together cases for funding, help pull together a literature review and build a case for this is what the evidence recommends, and this is why they should give you money because of what you're doing. And so we kind of go back through, some of the challenges that we talked about and our solutions. Our offerings are rooted in the understanding that these bigger factors that we were going over influence who we are and how we show up. And so it's not just individual level, but we all have kind of some cultural brainwashing, some of it good, some of it not so good. And that influences how we're able to show up. And so we are pretty committed to programs and policies that are holistic and not just necessarily asking, the employee or the family served by an organization to change, but rather to change the systems around people so that these systems and the programs and policies actually support the whole person or the whole family or the whole community or the whole workplace. So our recommendations are grounded in cultural healing practices, brain science, and the latest research. And we strive to make sure that our interventions are based on scientific research that is equitable and inclusive. And so relationship and interpersonal, this is really the backbone of what we're offering, is that first we have to care about how others are doing and feeling. And I know in our really fast-paced society, it can be really hard to slow down and be like, wow, how are other people doing? And then on the other hand, for those of us who were raised as girls to always put other people first, that creates another interesting problem. Maybe sometimes we have been trained to care too much about others, and maybe we need to focus on how we feel and ask for what we need. And so it's interesting though, because I have been leading something that I'll talk about in a minute called the Job Grief Support Group that a few people have attended. And it's hard because what I'm saying in the Job Grief Support Group is like all of these factors outside of your control have conspired to create this moment where so many people hate their job. However, what can you as an individual do in your life? So, we really believe that it has to be all of the above. Understand all of the different factors, the systems of oppression, the racism, the sexism, all of those things create the society that we're in. And also, how can I show up and offer myself a little bit of a sense of purpose and control? And, how can I show up, and given that this is the situation at hand, how can I feel my best today? So we have a whole bunch of offerings. And so I'm going to go through them, and then let's see. Oh, screen sharing is paused. Okay. I'm going to put these in the chat. Did that bring it back? The screen share? It's back. Okay.
Yeah, it's back.
Cool. So here's all the links if you want to sign up, and I'm going to go through all of these offerings, and I hope that you will join us for these. So the one I'll be doing next week is preventing burnout with emotionally attuned management. And so attunement is actually a pretty big buzzword. I had never heard this word in my life until a few years ago, and now I'm like, oh, this is the basis for everything. How are we perceiving each other and able to attune to our interaction with people, engaging and sensing like who people are and what they need and what they're feeling, and how much closeness or space do people need. So it's a really fascinating topic. And I think that when it comes to management, it's really important for us to know how much autonomy does this person need, how much care, how much supervision, how much training, how many resources. And I don't see any of that happening, to be quite honest. With the majority of managers that I've encountered, are not really doing a great job of understanding just how much of what thing people need. And I think there are a number of factors. We will talk about those next week. Link is in the chat. Bri.
Yes, so I will be offering one the following week on Tuesday, February 27th. And mine is going to be moving from trauma organized to trauma informed systems. So thinking about how kind of like shifting a little bit and thinking about how organizations are actually like living systems, right? Because people are the ones that are developing organizations and systems, so they're living to some extent. And if we have stressed organizations, it's going to lead to stressed staff. It's going to lead to services being provided that aren't kind of the level of engagement, the level of quality that we would really hope and that all families deserve. Compared to if we can think about trauma-informed organizations. Trauma-informed, we can provide that care and compassion to all of the staff within the organization. We can have policies and practices that are trauma-informed, and that helps to strengthen those relationships with families and increase that engagement and productivity. So we create those communities of belonging and care.
I'm excited. I want to attend this one. So Donielle.
Okay. So as you can see with the title, what does sociocultural trauma have to do with the workplace? So in a lot of ways, this is going to be about introducing topics that I think people are hearing swirling, but you may not have had an opportunity to kind of dig deep and know what they mean. And then, of course, how does that apply to the workplace and creating caring communities? And that's going to be offered on March 12th. As you can see, 1 to 2 Pacific time where I am, 4 to 5 Eastern time. And, so define what do I mean by sociocultural trauma and how work can activate, people who are showing up with that in their background. And then we can do about it. And it's been interesting. I've had the opportunity to uh, present to counselors on this topic, and it's really interesting to think about what that looks like in a session. Haven't moved to the organizational level, but now, I can make recommendations.
Amazing.
How do we do this for the caregiver? But also it ends up being relevant too in that one-to-one setting. How do you it can really interfere with the therapeutic work that people are doing when they don't understand this link. So I'm looking forward to expanding that to talking about organizations and workplaces. So I hope to see you there, and I hope to be able to offer more in this domain.
Thanks, Donielle. So we also are really excited to invite experts on various topics to share their wisdom with us, and especially in creating the world that we want to live in, that's a more caring and inclusive environment for all of us. So we have invited author Dr. Darsha Narvaez to talk about this book that she edited and co-wrote called Restoring the Kinship Worldview, Indigenous Voices Introduce 28 Precepts for Rebalancing Life on Planet Earth. Doesn't that sound nice? And so we hope folks might read or peruse the book before joining, and she will do a live question and answer at the beginning of this book club. And she is really wonderful, and I can't wait for her to help us envision this type of kinship society, kinship-based society. Job grief support group is something that I launched in August of last year, and it's just been really popular and really rewarding to facilitate. And so we will have another one launching coming up. Right now, we have the third cohort is off and running, and it's an 8-week program, and we meet once a week and talk about these various topics. So just stay tuned for when that next one will be. So we really hope to see you at an upcoming event. We really thought about how can we do deep dives. Like, this was such a general overview that how can we do deep dives into these various topics, and we have a bunch of other stuff in the works as well as offering, community level events to anyone, and just various ways to work with us. And so please don't hesitate to reach out. We would love to hear from you. Check out our website. And I really appreciate everyone being here today to help us launch. It's really exciting. And thank you all for the work that you do, and obviously some passion in creating caring communities with us. That's why you're here. So thank you for that.